we a lot of times believe this is all there is. And it's tough because we live through the five senses, and it's only what you can see and hear and taste and touch, and that's what you use to dictate what you believe. But that's not something that defines a soul or a spirit. It's just one of those limitations of living in physical life. And so it's backwards, even though you've kind of been raised to believe and you're taught to kind of live within these parameters. It's very basic. It's very, ground floor. And I guess people just accept all their pain, and they accept things as if there is no time, even though they do believe in time here on physical earth, but they don't seem to see that it's almost like you freeze time. You know that time passes and you're worried about it because a lot of people are like, I'm afraid to like die and not have a legacy. So there is that sense of like time moving, but at the same time, a lot of us still operate as if it was frozen time from 20 years ago when this traumatic event happened, or something we perceive that someone did something to us, and we somehow freeze time in that moment. You're still living in present moment from that time. It's as if you never let yourself move with time, and that can be very, very painful. So I guess just to like dumb things down, well, okay, that's not the right word, but I guess it starts with it can happen in leaps and bounds, but I think when you're working on personal development, it's most helpful to put that to the side. And I think that notion also comes a lot from our media, and what we see in the world through media is a lot of extraordinary, a lot of overnight success, a lot of you're either unique and special or you're not, when in fact, as Carolyn Ness teaches, we're all ordinary. And that can be your biggest blessing, is to want to be more ordinary than unique or special or extraordinary, because that just puts a lot of pressure and it blocks you from your spiritual growth and your spiritual blossoming. So to just work on it without looking at it, there's like the stock market. You can be like looking at it every single day. That's not really how you want to. I mean, it's inevitable. I think a lot of people, when they start out on their spiritual journey or personal development journey, we're so defined in our society by measurement and how are we doing, that can really trip you up, as well as looking at the stock market and analyzing it day to day. When that will only block you too, because you're just trying to, that's egoic, you're trying to measure it, you're trying to be like, how far have I come now? And what can I do with that? Can I start teaching right away? Can I start telling other people what to do? Can I start lording over people? Being like, oh, look what I know and what you don't know. It's very personal, so just try to keep your personal and spiritual development journey very, very personal. Sometimes you keep that journey 100% to yourself. I know I have for a lot of the time that I've been on my journey, is you just don't tell people, and sometimes that can be a lonely place to be, but I think for me, that lonely place is where I needed to be also, so that I couldn't rely on other people. I couldn't keep giving my power away. I was forced to, maybe I was forcing myself to continually not have anyone around me to grab, to need validation from or tell, so that they could validate me. And if they didn't, then I would feel like I wasn't doing the right thing. It's got to just be the relationship between you and your higher power, your soul, your intuition, the fuller part of your being that, eternally exists from lifetime to lifetime. A portion of yourself is here on earth, kind of like a hand in a glove, but there's a full body that exists in eternity. And that's you too, but you here is just the hand in the glove being the body. And so there's just so much more than we're taught to believe when we're coming up in life, raised by parents, school system, friends and family, just society that surrounds kind of like the individual in general as you're from birth to kind of growing up. So it's really, you will naturally be led to want more, I think, as you live life. But it can be very uncomfortable because it's really like going against the grain. But spirit works in paradox, because going against the grain in physical life is uncomfortable on that very base level. But on a higher level, you're really going with your spirit, with yourself. You're going with the grain. And so for you personally, even if everyone else around you one day or at one point in time or for 2 weeks out of your life says, no, you're doing the wrong thing, if it feels right to you, just trust that. Because the biggest impact on you and your life is your relationship and how you feel, whether you're in alignment with your higher power, and your soul, and your spirit. So it can be very challenging to grow. It can be there's a lot of reasons or payoffs, if you will, for staying where you are with the same story around the pain or the trauma that defining your identity. It can either be very obvious to you that you're using that as your identity, or it can be sneaky where you don't even realize that you've created an identity that relies on the pain that you dislike so much, or you hold this grudge against this person. Not that they deserve to be let off the hook, but we'll talk about that later. But like, forgiveness is 100% about you and not that other person. It doesn't mean allowing that person to do that to you or condoning it at all. That is like not at all. I think that's probably that misconception, which is again that base level physical life thing. We're kind of taught like the opposite of like truth. So forgiveness is all about you and freeing yourself and forgiving yourself for keeping yourself in that previous time and living your present life in 50 years forward from something that happened for 5 minutes 50 years ago. That's, at the end of the day, it's you doing it, not to put blame on yourself, but that's just kind of what happens in life and how the brain works and how, we see it all around us. People, not just us, we see it a lot, that's just kind of the culture. So nothing to blame yourself for, just to be aware of so that you can release it, unlock it, and improve your life. But yeah, really seeing things around you that don't make sense. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't feel good, just know that there's more. And you really got to excavate deep within yourself to know that. It's not going to come from other people. It's not going to come from, people can be cooperative components in your life to be teachers and such, but you really have to be the captain of the ship. So it can feel incredibly lonely. But I think we're so codependent that is, the dark night of the soul. That's the time that you need to build up your courage of trusting that you exist as an eternal soul, like a bigger version of yourself, And all you need in your life is that connection. And then everything else is for enjoyment and being with people. It's free. It's free of attachments. It's free of expectations. And there'll still be, obviously we live in this world together, there'll still be co-creative experiences and interactions that we have with each other that will trigger and challenge us or bring us great bliss and joy and exhilaration and satisfaction and fulfillment. It's still going to be life. You've just changed once you continue each layer of ascension. Your premise is different. Your operating rules are different. And when the foundation changes each time you ascend, you recalibrate, you adjust for the new you, and your life around you inevitably reflects that. But it can be really, really hard to change. That takes a lot of, maybe, like that loneliness, because that could be the path of least resistance, at least at first while you get your bearings, before you kind of like are able to walk as your new you each level of ascension. You need to solidify before you share with others or teach others. You have to be solid within yourself each step of the way. And so just keep that in mind. And, it can be, exciting or itchy to like tell everyone, share everything, every step of the way, but that can sometimes slow down your journey. And it might not feel good because you may be doing that to get validation. And if you don't get it, that can be very disappointing. It can put you in a position where you feel like you're doing something wrong. And that's not good for your spiritual development or journey. You want to kind of reserve it for yourself and be aware, why am I sharing this? And is this person, why am I sharing it? And also, why am I sharing it with you? Keep your energy well respected. So it's sacred to share something. And if that person's just going to take your gift or present that you give them, if you look at it that way, and throw it on the floor or try to smash it and intentionally destroy it in front of you, why would you do that? So we do that all the time. I felt it in my own life. You say it and you almost kind of know like they're going to throw it on the floor, but it's as if you have something to prove. And where's that, what's the place that you're coming from where you're sharing something? Is it to get approval or validation? Is it so I could try to change someone else? Is it so I can feel superior to you? You start to ask yourself a lot of these questions.